Imagine opening your mailbox on a Thursday afternoon, standing in your kitchen with your reading glasses halfway down your nose, expecting nothing more serious than a pharmacy notice or an electric bill, and instead finding a letter from Social Security telling you that you were overpaid and now owe $7,842 back. Not next year, not in a small amount they politely discuss with you. Now. And the sentence that hits hardest is not even the amount. It is the part that quietly tells you they can start taking money out of your monthly check if you do not respond in time. I need you to hear me very clearly, because this is where thousands of older Americans make the mistake that turns a manageable problem into a financial emergency. The danger is often not the overpayment itself. The danger is how you respond in the first days after that letter arrives. And if you are over 60, living on a fixed income, helping a spouse, recovering from a health issue, or simply trusting that government records must be right, this can hit you harder and faster than you think. I deal with these systems professionally, and one of the most frustrating things I see is how many seniors are never told that the first response is everything. They are told they owe. They are told there is a deadline. What they are not told in plain English is that there is a difference between admitting the debt, challenging the debt, asking for the debt to be forgiven, and protecting the next monthly check while the case is reviewed. That silence is where the real damage happens. Here is the invisible financial risk. Many seniors assume that if Social Security says they overpaid you, the agency must be correct, the money must be paid back, and the smartest move is to call the number on the letter and work something out. That is exactly how people lose leverage. A phone call is not the same as the correct written response. A verbal explanation is not the same as preserving your rights. And sending a payment before you understand why the overpayment happened can be the costliest mistake in the whole process, because it can lock you mentally into a debt that may be wrong, partially wrong, appealable, waivable, or negotiable. Some overpayments happen because earnings were reported late or processed late. Some happen because Social Security updated a record months or even years after the payments were made. Some happen after a spouse dies, after a pension record changes, after work activity is reclassified, or after the agency says it relied on information that was incomplete, duplicated, or entered under the wrong assumption. The senior who receives the letter often thinks, if this happened, I must have done something wrong. But many times the real story is much messier than that, and the system does not slow down just because you are confused. This is where the urgency starts. Most people focus on the 60-day appeal window because that is the number they remember. But the more dangerous deadline can come earlier. If you want to keep Social Security from automatically reducing or withholding benefits while your challenge is pending, timing matters fast. In many overpayment situations, waiting to think about it, waiting for your daughter to visit next month, or waiting until after a doctor appointment can cost you real money. I have seen people lose part or all of a monthly benefit simply because they assumed the letter was the beginning of a conversation. It is not. It is the beginning of a clock, and the agency does not proactively explain that there are different lanes for response. One lane says, you are wrong, this overpayment amount is not correct. Another says, even if you think it is correct, I was not at fault and I cannot afford to repay this. Those are not the same argument. They use different logic. They can require different forms. And if you do not understand that distinction, you can answer the wrong question and lose the better protection. Let me make this real. A 68-year-old widow I will call Carol started receiving a retirement benefit and later a survivor-related adjustment after her husband died. For more than a year, the deposits came in normally. She budgeted around them, paid her property taxes in installments, and helped a grandson with community college books. Then she got a notice saying she had been overpaid $11,260. According to the letter, a record update changed the calculation of her benefit months earlier, and now Social Security wanted the money back. Carol did what good, responsible people do. She panicked quietly. Then she called. She sat on hold, explained that she had reported everything she was told to report, and asked the representative what to do. The representative explained the balance and mentioned repayment. Carol heard the word plan, assumed that meant the debt was fixed and real, and mailed in a small payment the following week to show good faith. What she did not understand was that she had never properly challenged the overpayment determination in writing, had never properly requested relief based on lack of fault and inability to repay, and had come dangerously close to letting the process roll forward as if she accepted the agency's version of events. By the time her son took a closer look, the issue was not just the amount, it was that critical time had already been burned. Now stay with me, because this is the hidden mechanism that almost nobody explains well enough. In these cases, there are usually two big questions. First, is the overpayment determination actually correct? Second, even if Social Security believes there was an overpayment, should recovery be waived because the person was without fault, and repayment would either defeat the purpose of the program or be against equity and good conscience? That sounds technical, but the practical meaning is simple. One question attacks the bill. The other asks that the bill not be collected. Seniors constantly get trapped because they argue fairness when they should first be arguing accuracy, or they argue accuracy informally over the phone when what they really need is a documented appeal and, in some cases, a waiver request as well. The form people often need to know about is the request for reconsideration, commonly associated with Form SSA-561, when the amount or existence of the overpayment is disputed. The other form people may need to understand is the waiver request, commonly associated with Form SSA-632, when the issue is that the person was not at fault and cannot reasonably repay or should not be forced to. And here is the trap. Many seniors think choosing one means giving up the other. Not always. Depending on the facts, both issues may matter, and how you frame them can determine whether your case gets treated as a real challenge or just a repayment discussion. This is why the respond correctly part of the title matters more than the demand thousands back part. The letter is frightening, yes, but fear causes people to do exactly what the system handles least generously: delay, call without documenting, mail partial payments, or accept a tiny withholding arrangement without first testing whether the overpayment should be reduced, reversed, or waived. And the silence around this is institutional. Agencies send dense notices. Banks see the reduced deposit and shrug. Families assume there must be no alternative. Meanwhile, the senior is the one cutting groceries, skipping a medication refill, or putting a utility bill on a credit card. If this video is helping you already, do one thing before you forget: subscribe and save this video, because you may not need it today, but the week that letter shows up, you will want the exact sequence, not vague advice from a neighbor who means well and got lucky once. Now let's talk about why these overpayments happen in the first place, because understanding that keeps you from surrendering too quickly. One common cause is delayed earnings matching. A senior under full retirement age earns more than expected, or payroll data is processed late and the benefit record is adjusted after the fact. Another is a change in marital or survivor status that was reported but not fully processed until months later. Another is disability-related work activity, where the agency later decides payments should have changed earlier. Another is an internal recalculation tied to pensions, offsets, or record corrections. And here is the emotional trap. Because the letter arrives long after the money was spent on normal living costs, seniors feel guilty for money they never knew was wrong. But from a legal and procedural standpoint, the age of the overpayment does not erase your rights to question it. In fact, the longer the timeline, the more important it becomes to gather the notices, bank statements, reporting confirmations, and benefit histories that show what you knew, what you were told, and whether you had any reason to believe the payments were incorrect. Pause with me for a moment and check your own situation, because this is where viewers realize the danger is closer than they thought. Have you had any change in work income, pension income, marital status, household status, disability status, or survivor benefits in the last 24 months? Have you received any strange benefit adjustment letter you did not fully understand? Have your monthly deposits changed by even a few dollars without a clear explanation? Have you ever called Social Security to report something and assumed the matter was closed because the person on the phone said, okay? If the answer to any of those is yes, then you are exactly the type of person who should not ignore the possibility of an overpayment notice, because the system often moves after the fact, not in real time. The risk is silent until it is expensive. Back to Carol. When her file was finally reviewed properly, it became clear the case was not as simple as the letter made it sound. Part of the alleged overpayment related to a timing issue in the record update. Part of it raised questions about whether she had received and understood the earlier notices. More importantly, her income and expenses showed she had no realistic ability to repay over $11,000 without losing basic financial stability. She was not hiding income. She had not invented a status. She had relied on the checks as issued. That distinction matters. A senior who knew payments were wrong and said nothing is in a very different position from a senior who reported events, relied on the agency's calculations, and had no reason to know the deposit amount was not what it should be. This is where the phrase "without fault" becomes more than legal language. It becomes the hinge of the entire outcome. People hear the word fault and think confession. The agency uses it more specifically. Did you make a statement you knew was incorrect? Did you fail to furnish information you knew was material? Did you accept a payment you either knew or could have been expected to know was incorrect? That last part is where many seniors lose confidence because they think, maybe I should have known. But should have known is not the same as the letter made me feel embarrassed in hindsight. The facts matter. The notices matter. Your age, education, health, comprehension, and the complexity of the benefit change can matter. The case is built in detail, not emotion alone. And now we get to the rule change or procedural shift that has made this issue even more dangerous for some viewers. Recovery policies and withholding practices can change over time, and seniors often learn about them only after a notice lands. The percentage of a monthly check that can be withheld, the way notices are worded, and the pace of recovery can all dramatically affect whether a person can survive the error while disputing it. That means outdated advice is dangerous. Someone who says, "Don't worry, they only take a little each month," may be repeating a rule from a different period, a different benefit type, or a different situation. This is exactly why you cannot rely on casual reassurance. You need to treat the notice like a legal financial event, not a customer service problem. Because once withholding begins, the monthly pressure itself pushes people into bad choices. They agree to terms just to stop the pain. They sign before they understand. They repay from savings meant for emergencies. And suddenly the solution is worse than the original notice. Here's the delayed fix reveal most people never hear in time. The winning move is often not a phone call, not a panic payment, and not a vague letter saying you disagree. The winning move is a fast, documented, strategic response that identifies which lane you are in and preserves every protection you still have. If the amount is wrong, challenge the overpayment determination directly and do it in writing. If repayment would be unjust because you are not at fault and cannot afford it, request waiver relief with real financial detail. If you need benefits to continue while the issue is reviewed, act before the shorter practical deadline passes. If the notice is confusing, get a complete copy, keep the envelope, note the date received, and create a paper trail immediately. In Carol's case, once the response was reframed correctly, the pressure shifted. The matter was no longer, how will she pay this back? It became, was the amount correct? And even if not fully reversible, should recovery be waived? That is a totally different battlefield. And that change in framing is what saved her from sleepwalking into a repayment path that could have drained her. Let me be precise about what this does and does not cover, because misinformation hurts seniors every day. This warning covers Social Security overpayment notices connected to benefits and the agency's effort to recover money it says should not have been paid. It can include retirement, survivor, and disability-related situations under Social Security. It does not automatically resolve IRS tax debt, Medicare premium disputes, private pension overpayments, bank levy issues, or every SSI-specific complication which can involve related but distinct rules. It also does not mean every overpayment notice is wrong. Some are accurate. Some cannot be fully erased. Some must be negotiated. The point is not that every debt disappears. The point is that thousands of seniors lose money because they never use the correct response route early enough to find out what part of the debt is real, what part can be challenged, what part can be waived, and what can be slowed before the monthly damage starts. So here is the practical action protocol I want you to remember if that letter arrives this week. Do not ignore it. Do not throw it in a drawer. Do not make a payment just to be polite. Do not rely on a phone conversation as your legal response. Read the notice for the date, the alleged amount, the reason given, and the deadline language. Pull every related notice you have received in the last year or two. Print or write down a benefit timeline. Gather proof of what you reported and when you reported it. Get your monthly budget in front of you, because inability to repay is not a feeling, it is a documented picture. Then decide whether you are disputing the overpayment, requesting waiver, or both based on the facts. Respond in writing, keep copies, and if you hand deliver anything, get proof. If you mail anything, track it. If your health, vision, or stress level makes this hard, get help immediately from someone who understands Social Security procedure, not just general paperwork. And do not let embarrassment keep you quiet. The system counts on silence more than it admits. Because here is the final truth most seniors are never told until after the damage begins. The biggest threat is not that Social Security can ask for thousands back. The biggest threat is that the notice arrives dressed like a bill when it is really a test of whether you know how to protect yourself under pressure. The people who act fast, document everything, and choose the correct response path often keep far more money than the people who react emotionally, delay, or assume the agency's first number is the final truth. If you are over 60, one wrong week can change the next 6 months of your finances. One unopened letter can turn into one reduced deposit, then one missed payment, then one decision made out of fear instead of strategy. And if you have a spouse, a sister, a neighbor, or a parent living on Social Security, this is not a video to watch later. This is a warning to act before the trap closes. Check your notices, check your records, check your deadlines. And if that letter is already on your table, do not respond casually, because thousands of dollars can be lost not when the notice is sent, but when the senior answers the wrong way after it arrives.